and other countries of the Sahel, the 1970s and 80s were marked by periods of successive droughts. The lack of much-needed rainwater is at the source of this dramatic situation, also aggravated by the inhabitants of the Sahel, whom, for the most part, are engaged in an over-exploitation of the region's already meager natural resources. Because in Africa, over 85% of the cooking energy used originates mainly from wood. With a rapidly growing population, more wood is used than is allowed to grow naturally. It is therefore not rare to note that in the Sahel, consuming wood is more costly than the meals it is used to cook. Entire regions become barren while the desert advances quickly. An intriguing question to solve and an obvious concern for the various nations of the sub-region whose economies depend largely on the agricultural sector. Yet Africa is the most sunlit continent on the planet. Why not then use this inexhaustible supply of free energy readily available to the populations of the Sahel? It is to answer these questions that the microfinancing program of the Global Environment Fund financed the solar stove project in Mékhé, a region greatly affected by this climatic context, located 130 kilometers from Dakar. This project, whose beneficiary is the Women's Association of Ndiop, is also linked to climatic changes, the main theme of interest of the microfinancing program of the Global Environment Fund. Abdoulaye Touré is the inventor of the solar stove, which is environmentally safe and also reduces household costs and alleviates housework. What you see here is a solar stove, designed especially to cook food. It's the stove I created myself since the problems of 1990 in the valley of the Senegal River. At that time, there was a cholera epidemic and I was a school principal, and we had to find a solution because it was important that the school children have access to drinking water. In the beginning, it was very important to sterilize the water in order to avoid further spreading of the disease. After this test period, we began to realize that the stove, which was initially built from cardboard, could be rebuilt and improved, and that's what we did. En carton, et ce four, nous l'avons développé et atteignait environ 130 degrés. C'est le four de la première génération. This is the first generation stove, which was similar to the traditional oven trunks used by our grandmothers. Furthermore, since we live in a tropical climate where the solar incline is at 17 degrees, we had to find another approach. Therefore, when the sun travels from east to west, it forms an inclined position, which explains this inclined receptor you see here. The stove is created using the greenhouse effect. What does that mean? The sun rays descend in waves, and as the waves descend, they travel through this double glass. The double glass filters the sun rays, and the rays are then stocked in a dark compartment. This process is called heat insulation, which converts sunlight into heat energy. The heat will increase because it is stored while the sun rays continue to reflect on the stove. You must simply prevent heat from escaping the stove.
N'emmagasine cette chaleur, ça augmente au fur et à mesure que le soleil tape. L'essentiel, il suffisait simplement d'empêcher la chaleur de sortir, ce qui fait qu'avec du matériel de récupération.
Using scrap material and adopting a similar concept in the fabrication of refrigerators, we built it airtight in order to store the heat.
D'emmagasiner cette chaleur. Mais une chaleur qui peut atteindre 150 degrés.
But at 150 degrees, it was difficult to cook meals without damaging the interior, which is why we had to isolate it, which explains this item here. The aluminum foyer is lodged in a case, and to isolate the interior heat, we tested different types of insulators. We discovered that the best insulator was dried straw that we found in the Fouta. Finally, we use leftover carpentry materials. It's free and environmentally correct, as far as not having to throw it away in the environment. So the stove functions using the greenhouse effect. It receives sunlight directly, then heat is received a second time from the aluminum reflector. So the oven receives sunlight twice. The stored sunlight is transformed into heat in the oven foyer. The heat level can reach up to 150 degrees, which is ideal cooking temperature for all meals. We built several stoves which we tested in Tambacounda, Casamance, and Mauritania. And today, the solar stove is growing in popularity. Which is why the Women's Association of Ndiop requested the stove in close collaboration with the NGO CRESP. They developed this project, which is funded by the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, and which is why we're here today. 100 stoves will be distributed to the women of Ndiop, a rural community where the majority of women still use firewood. This accelerated use of firewood has resulted in a dramatic deforestation problem in the region. The use of firewood has also impacted the education of children because they are forced to miss school to go and collect firewood. Today's generation of women need to cook their meals and tend to other matters. And since the stove has a steady cooking time, it allows you to prepare your meals and tend to other important matters in the fields or at the office. This, in short, explains why we developed the solar stove. Additionally, we are very satisfied with the Women's Association of Ndiop for creating this project. We visited several homes in the community and discovered that the use of the solar stove is becoming a custom. Nonetheless, there still remains a few reservations concerning the product because it is not customary in Senegalese cooking to use this type of material. Therefore, we are training the women of the village on the use of the solar stove so that this becomes a normal habit. The solar stove is an oven which functions according to the principles of the greenhouse effect. The sun's rays, in short waves, pass through the double glass partitions without losing its energy. By touching the interior partitions of the stove, covered with a special non-toxic paint, it transforms into thermal rays in long waves which then heats the food in the container. Thanks to a thermal insulation, the possible loss of heat in the stove is reduced to a strict minimum. In order to reduce cooking time, the stove must follow the trajectory of the sun. The inclined angle of the reflecting panel is in a correct position when the reflection of the sun's rays touches the front edge of the oven and not the ground. The steel rod is used to maintain the inclined position. The positioning of the stove is determined by coinciding the shadow of the steel rod with the wooden partition located in the center of the glass partitions. The solar stove has many advantages, such as reducing household costs. I don't need to use butane gas, which is expensive for my budget. The stove also allows me to tend to other matters and occupations. As for the positioning of the stove, it all depends on the sun. Even the children are able to do that in my absence. 80% of it built using local materials, the solar stove contributes in the local economy and in the fight against unemployment. This project is funded by the microfinancing program of the Global Environment Fund for the account of the Women's Association of Ndiop, member of the Eco Village of Ngai Mehe, in partnership with the Eco Village Network of Senegal and the NGO CRESP. What are the components of the project? the director of the Social Emergence Participative Resource Center, CRESP. The different components of the project that the Women's Association of Meche developed is primarily the promotion of the solar stove using the prototype model invented by Mr. Abdoulaye Touré. The second aspect is a microcredit program, and thirdly is a reforestation program. These are the three essential components of the project. A fourth component is a consolidation of all the action programs. What is the CRESP relationship with the financial backers, notably the FEM, or the Global Environment Fund? With the FEM, we are progressing with several programs. We have a very positive partnership in terms of the villages, particularly the eco-villages. And since the Global Earth Summit in South Africa, we are determined, along with the FEM, to create a long-term developmental program in the eco-villages. Meche will benefit from the program, along with Mbam and Luli. So several villages are benefiting from these micro-projects. What is your NGO's relationship with the GEN, or the GEN? The GEN is the Global Eco-Village Network, of which I am the president of the Senegal branch. We have a collaborative partnership, and we are by the GEN in the promotion of long-term development concepts, similar to what the FEM provides for us. What are the objectives of this project? If we look at the main context, Senegal is a country in the Sahel characterized essentially by the degradation of plant life. It is therefore interesting to note what these women can produce through the use of the solar stove as an alternative, along with a reforestation program in order to halt the degradation of plant life. This explains the three principal aspects of the project. The first, obviously, is the reforestation program, followed by the use of the solar stove, and additionally, the increase in training capacities. What does this mean in terms of results? We are fortunate that the project, which has a research action aspect, is a joint collaboration with a team of university researchers from the University Cheikh Anta Diop and the NGO CRESP, as well as a team from Cornell University in the US, which did an energy audit with very encouraging results. Preliminary results concluded that butane gas use in Diop reduced 1/3. This study was done in 30 households. The other encouraging result, still concerning the energy, is a 2/3 reduction in the use of firewood. The use of charcoal has also reduced to more than half. These are extremely encouraging results. Furthermore, carbon dioxide emission decreased to more than half. We are also able to fight against poverty because with the use of the solar stove, the women are able to prepare meals destined for sale.
Mais également dans le domaine de la lutte contre la pauvreté, puisque les femmes avec les cuisinières solaires préparaient des aliments qu'elles commercialisaient, qu'elles vendaient. Cette commercialisation.
And according to studies, this commerce generated an average profit of 2,500 CFA francs per day per stove. The other convincing results concern skills reinforcements. Local carpenters were trained to build and assemble the solar stoves. Women were also trained not only in the use of the solar stoves, but also in the reforestation program.
Un autre résultat, c'est dans le domaine du reboisement, puisque je vous ai dit que la dégradation du couvert végétal, l'utilisation des fours solaires comme alternative, mais également reboisement. Près de 4,000 plants.
Nearly 4,000 plants were produced in the nursery garden of Meche and reforested. These are the facts, and a final evaluation at the conclusion of the project will show that these results are long-term. Nonetheless, with the environment, only time will tell what the impacting results will be. These impacts will be studied in the future. For the moment, it's encouraging. I believe that a program of mass production of the solar stoves for the region of Chess and at a national level should be implemented. The adoption of the solar stoves in rural areas is a true revolution that must be sustained and popularized in countries of the Sahel.